Before we begin, do yourself a favor. Slow down. Unclench your teeth. Grab a coffee, a glass of water, or whatever beverage makes you feel like a functioning human being, and just listen for a while. Because today, we're not talking about murder, or theft, or espionage. We're talking about rain. More specifically, the time when collecting rainwater, literal water falling from the sky, could make you a criminal. This sounds fake. It sounds like the kind of thing someone confidently says on the internet and is immediately wrong about. And yet, for a long time, in several places, collecting rainwater without permission was either heavily restricted or outright illegal. Not because water is dangerous, not because rain is rare, but because ownership is complicated. To understand how rain became contraband, we need to talk about geography, scarcity, old laws that refuse to die, and the uncomfortable reality that natural does not always mean free. Let's start with the intuition most of us have. Rain falls from the sky. It doesn't belong to anyone. It lands on your roof, flows into your gutter, fills your barrel. End of story. Except, not really. Because water doesn't stop being important just because it's inconvenient to regulate. In much of the world, water is governed by something called water rights. These are legal frameworks that determine who gets to use water, how much they can use, and when. And unlike land ownership, water rights often don't care where the water starts, they care where it ends up. This is where things get weird. In large parts of the western United States, water law is based on a doctrine called prior appropriation. The basic idea is simple: first in time, first in right. Whoever first diverted water from a source and put it to beneficial use has priority over later users. This system developed in the 19th century during westward expansion, when water was scarce, settlers were spread out, and survival depended on irrigation. Rivers were lifelines. Whoever got there first depended on keeping that water flowing. And critically, under this system, rain that falls on your land is not automatically yours. Because once rain hits the ground, it often feeds streams, rivers, and aquifers that someone else downstream already has rights to. So if you capture that rain before it reaches the watershed, you are, legally speaking, interfering with someone else's water. That someone else might be a farmer, or a city, or an irrigation district, or an ecosystem protected by law. Which means that your rain barrel isn't just a barrel, it's a dam. Historically, states like Colorado took this logic very seriously. For decades, collecting rainwater without a permit was restricted because every drop was considered part of the broader water system. Even rooftop runoff was theoretically owed to downstream users. And to modern ears, this sounds absurd, but to people living in arid regions where water allocation is a zero-sum game, it makes a kind of grim sense. If everyone captures rain independently, the collective effect can be significant. Streams shrink, reservoirs don't fill, rights holders lose access to water they are legally entitled to. So governments step in, not to punish sustainability, but to enforce fairness, or at least consistency, within a system designed long before rain barrels became fashionable. This leads to situations that sound dystopian out of context. Homeowners being fined for unpermitted rain collection, people being told to remove barrels, confiscations, legal battles over something that feels instinctively like it should be free. And of course, the internet notices. Rainwater laws become a symbol. To some, they represent government overreach at its most petty. To others, they're a misunderstood but necessary part of managing scarce resources in a fragile environment. The truth, as usual, is more complicated. In reality, very few people were ever prosecuted simply for collecting small amounts of rainwater for household use. Enforcement focused on large-scale diversions, ponds, reservoirs, systems capable of capturing millions of gallons. But the existence of the law mattered because it revealed something uncomfortable. Nature is regulated not by poetry, but by accounting. Over time, pressure builds, public opinion shifts, conservation becomes mainstream. Rainwater harvesting is reframed not as theft, but as sustainability. States begin to adapt, Colorado, for example, eventually legalized limited rainwater collection for residential use. Other states followed similar paths, carving out exceptions, permits, and caps that balance individual use with collective rights. Today, rainwater harvesting is legal in all 50 states in some form, though the rules vary widely. Some encourage it, some regulate it, some still require permits above certain thresholds. But the legacy remains, because rainwater laws are not really about rain. They're about systems, about how we manage shared resources, about what happens when individual freedom collides with collective dependence. And once you see it that way, the idea of illegal rainwater stops sounding ridiculous and starts sounding inevitable. This isn't unique to water. We've seen it with gold, with food, with land, with airspace, with radio frequencies, things that feel infinite until suddenly they aren't, things that feel personal until they scale. Rain just happens to be especially poetic. It falls without discrimination. It doesn't care about borders or deeds or laws written centuries ago. And yet, the moment it touches the ground, it enters a world of contracts, rights, and obligations. So the next time you hear someone say it's illegal to collect rainwater, the correct response isn't outrage or dismissal, it's curiosity. Because somewhere behind that sentence is a story about scarcity, survival, and the quiet rules that decide who gets what, even when what's at stake falls from the sky. If you enjoyed this story, take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who loves learning about strange laws and hidden systems, leave a comment about the weirdest regulation you've ever encountered. Now, relax, take another sip, and I'll see you in the next one.